May Camilla, who wears the crown, be guided by grace and noble character. Let love reign in her heart. In a monarchy built on appearances, tradition, and tight control, very little truly shocks Buckingham Palace. But this time was different. Even the most seasoned royal aides were at a loss for words. What started as quiet murmurs in palace halls has grown into a full-blown royal crisis. Queen Camilla has been quietly pulled from public duties indefinitely after a stunning revelation from none other than Princess Anne. And this wasn't a minor issue. It was explosive. Camilla abruptly canceled a scheduled appearance at a state banquet in Windsor, raising immediate public suspicion. A few hours later, the palace issued a vague statement citing personal matters. But behind closed doors, things were far from calm. Royal cars were seen leaving Clarence House late at night. Camilla's top aides were called into emergency meetings. Most significantly, Princess Anne spent nearly 2 hours in a closed-door meeting with King Charles. Shortly after, Camilla was informed she would no longer carry out any royal duties. What exactly did Anne say to Charles, and why was the impact so immediate and severe? According to palace insiders, Princess Anne, long regarded as the firm backbone of the royal family, presented her brother with a collection of concerns, evidence, and blunt criticism aimed squarely at Camilla. The specifics remain unclear, but one thing is certain. Camilla's sudden exit was not a stumble, but a full-blown collapse. Her public calendar has been cleared for the foreseeable future. A planned installation of her portrait at Sandringham has been quietly shelved. Perhaps most surprising of all, she has reportedly been asked to vacate Clarence House, at least for now. The public is starting to connect the dots. Camilla and Kate have had a strained dynamic for years. Subtle tensions between Camilla and Prince William have been whispered about, like the frosty curtsy that never happened, or Camilla's alleged efforts to elevate her own family within the royal structure. Then came Kate's mysterious health scare, which shook the nation. Now, royal analysts suggest that it may have been the final tipping point. At the heart of the storm stands Princess Anne, a woman of few words but decisive action when the monarchy's integrity is at stake. The royal family now finds itself at a pivotal moment. Queen Camilla, once seen as a partner to King Charles in modernizing the monarchy, has been quietly pushed aside, and perhaps for good. With King Charles reportedly rattled and retreating from key responsibilities, Prince William and Princess Anne have begun to quietly take the reins. The question on everyone's mind is no longer whether Camilla has been removed from the spotlight, but just how far the palace is willing to go to keep her out of it. For years, she stood beside King Charles III as a symbol of endurance, a woman who weathered decades of scandal, criticism, and icy public reception to ultimately rise to the top of the royal structure. But that narrative is now unraveling. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the main content. The carefully composed image she worked so hard to build has fractured, and possibly beyond repair. Insiders say there had been signs of trouble long before the public became aware. While Queen Elizabeth II reluctantly gave her blessing for Camilla to become queen consort, not everyone within the royal circle was on board. Tensions within the family had been simmering, but the real breaking point came from Camilla's increasingly bold interference in royal matters, not through official declarations, but through her actions. A particularly telling moment came during King Charles III's coronation. While the world looked on, something didn't sit right with royal watchers. 20 members of Camilla's family, including her children and grandchildren, were given front-row seats, despite holding no titles and performing no royal duties. In contrast, Kate Middleton's close family, long seen as part of the monarchy's more relatable and supportive side, were noticeably left out. To many within palace circles and the public, this wasn't just an oversight. It was a calculated move. Camilla may have intended to present a more modern, blended royal family, but instead it appeared she was trying to elevate the Parker Bowles family into a position of influence they were never intended to have. A senior courtier, speaking on condition of anonymity, shared that the situation deeply upset William. Kate and Princess Anne were reportedly furious. Anne saw it as a violation of royal tradition, and Kate, normally composed and diplomatic, allegedly refused to curtsy to Camilla during a private reception following the coronation. The moment sent quiet shockwaves through palace corridors. Although palace spokespeople downplayed the incident as mere speculation, multiple insiders confirmed the curtsy never happened, marking what many saw as the beginning of a silent rebellion within the royal family. Behind the scenes, William and Kate were said to be increasingly uneasy about Camilla's expanding influence. She had begun participating in engagements traditionally reserved for senior royals by birth. There were even discussions about Camilla becoming the patron of organizations long associated with Princess Diana, something many in the palace considered tone-deaf. Leaked documents suggested she was lobbying for one of her grandchildren to be granted a permanent role as a royal page, an unprecedented move seen by some as part of a subtle attempt to entrench her family's presence within the royal structure. One insider described it as a quiet takeover, though not everyone was willing to accept it. Princess Anne, long known for her straightforward attitude and unmatched dedication, allegedly challenged Camilla's growing reach directly. She questioned her presence at strategic planning meetings and refused to attend events where members of Camilla's family were included. It's also believed Anne privately warned King Charles that the monarchy's integrity could be at risk. The situation worsened in early 2024, when tensions between Camilla and Kate reportedly reached a boiling point. According to leaked reports, Camilla criticized Kate in private for taking an extended leave from duties due to health issues. Even more damaging, some aides claimed Camilla encouraged members of her own family to temporarily step in for public appearances during Kate's absence. That, for Prince William, was the breaking point. He reportedly had a closed-door meeting with his father, urging him to pull back on Camilla's growing role in the institution. Sources described the meeting as highly emotional and tense. King Charles, already facing growing speculation about his health, found himself caught between loyalty to his wife and responsibility to his son and the future of the monarchy. But the unease wasn't limited to the royal family. Even longtime supporters of the monarchy and Parliament began to quietly voice concerns about the Queen Consort's growing presence and authority. Letters were exchanged, questions were raised, and behind the scenes one figure was quietly keeping track of everything: Princess Anne. As scrutiny intensified, Camilla found herself increasingly isolated. Several aides stepped down. Her public appearances dwindled. Then came the moment that changed everything. A revelation from Princess Anne that, once shared with King Charles, reportedly led to Camilla being removed from all active royal duties. Once reluctantly accepted as part of the royal institution, Camilla was now being edged out with political precision. The image of unity that had sustained her place beside the king began to unravel. Her role is no longer a ceremonial fixture. It's now uncertain. With King Charles gradually stepping back, the message from within the crown has become unmistakably clear. For Camilla, the path forward appears closed. For years, Princess Anne kept her views private. Known for her composure, dedication, and no-nonsense approach, she has always represented the traditional core of the royal family. Rarely does she speak out. But when she does, people listen. In Camilla's case, Anne finally broke her silence. Sources say Anne had long been wary of how much sway Camilla held, not just over Charles, but over royal operations as a whole. She believed Camilla was slowly reshaping the monarchy to suit her own legacy. But true to her upbringing, Anne stayed quiet, placing duty above personal opinion. That is, until Camilla crossed a line. What triggered Anne's response, according to insiders, was a series of calculated moves that she could no longer ignore. Reports leaked from inside the palace revealed that Camilla was being included in high-level strategy meetings, typically reserved for senior royals by birth. More controversially, she was actively pushing for her family, including her children and grandchildren, to be factored into planning for future royal events, something unheard of for individuals outside the royal bloodline. To Anne, this wasn't about inclusion, it was overreach. Camilla wasn't bending rules, said one senior courtier. She was creating new ones. And once Anne saw that this power grab was affecting William and, more critically, Kate's health, she decided the situation had gone too far. The breaking point came during a confidential meeting with the king. Insiders describe it as one of the most intense confrontations of Charles's reign. Anne came prepared, with a private dossier filled with letters, senior official accounts, and documented evidence that showed Camilla had assumed significant influence over royal matters. Influence that, by many accounts, had been entirely handed over by Charles himself. But it wasn't just about Camilla's influence behind palace walls. Princess Anne also raised serious concerns about her alleged private communications with select members of the press and high society allies, conversations said to be aimed at boosting her family's public image while subtly undermining other royals, especially Kate. The meeting between Anne and King Charles, held in his private office at Clarence House, reportedly lasted over 2 hours. Those familiar with the exchange say Charles left visibly shaken. While the full contents of Anne's report haven't been publicly verified, one insider summarized it plainly. Anne came with evidence, and Charles walked away realizing that the woman he had once trusted at the heart of the monarchy could no longer be counted on to protect it. Camilla's entire schedule was cleared within a day. Public engagements were canceled. Her team was instructed to surrender internal materials. Behind the scenes, Anne, now supported by Prince William, was quietly tasked with keeping the palace steady during what many described as a behind-the-curtain transition of power. This wasn't a public showdown. It was a precise and deliberate move, one only Anne could pull off. "This isn't about personalities," she reportedly told a staffer. "It's about protecting the institution." Her intention, according to those close to her, was never to shame Camilla, but to preserve the monarchy from becoming a reflection of ego, favoritism, and unchecked ambition. With King Charles stepping back from many of his responsibilities, and William stepping forward, Anne's authority is greater than ever. She's no longer just the hardest-working member of the family. She's the steward, the disciplinarian, the one who acted when others remained silent. She didn't remove Camilla with spectacle. She did it with precision. And in contrast to the turmoil, Princess Kate remains the monarchy's most cherished figure. Admired across the Commonwealth, praised for her dignity and sense of duty, she has become the face of the royal family's future, a symbol of stability and hope. So when she unexpectedly collapsed earlier this year during a private family event, the effect was immediate and far-reaching. The palace issued a statement citing exhaustion and complications from a medical condition, but the reality behind closed doors hinted at something far more serious. But according to sources, the reality was far more troubling. Kate had hit a breaking point, and at the core of the pressure, stress, and emotional strain was none other than Queen Camilla. A senior staff member revealed that Kate had been carrying an enormous load for months. Balancing life as a mother of 3, supporting Prince William as he stepped more fully into his future role, and maintaining a full schedule of royal duties was already a heavy lift. But behind closed doors, Camilla's treatment of her had reportedly become cold, calculated, and increasingly cruel. One palace insider claimed Camilla consistently dismissed Kate's contributions, referring to her as too soft for royal life, and, in private, still calling her Middleton with a tone of condescension. She allegedly opposed Kate's involvement in protocol discussions and pushed back against her receiving certain patronages once associated with the late Queen Elizabeth. But the most disturbing claims involved Camilla's behind-the-scenes dealings with the media. According to insiders, she was quietly feeding negative stories to friendly journalists, subtle, undermining leaks designed to shape public opinion and chip away at Kate's reputation. "It was like death by 1,000 whispers," said one longtime aide. Offhand remarks about her health, her fragility, her supposed limitations, It all added up, and none of it was accidental. After Kate suddenly withdrew from public life, the announcement was quickly followed by a mysterious hospital stay. The public grew concerned, and William became fiercely protective. Sources say he confronted his father in a private, emotional conversation, demanding that the palace put an end to Camilla's influence. But King Charles, reportedly worn down by health struggles and emotional strain, refused to step in. That's when Princess Anne stepped forward, with a portfolio of concerns already in hand. She stood fully behind William and urged him to protect Kate, not just as his wife, but as the future of the monarchy. The timing was crucial. Camilla remained silent and out of view during Kate's recovery. No visit, no message, not even a public gesture of support. That absence didn't go unnoticed. Suddenly, the media narrative began to shift. Publications that once praised Camilla began to turn cool. Headlines started questioning her standing. Royal watchers, many of them still loyal to the memory of Princess Diana, recognized the familiar dynamic. The warm, relatable daughter-in-law versus the icy, ambitious queen. The optics were devastating. Camilla's public schedule was cleared just days after the announcement about Kate's health. Her security was quietly scaled back. And within palace walls, senior royals reached a consensus. Camilla could no longer be the face of the monarchy. True to form, Kate has remained silent throughout. But those close to her say she's quietly recovering and regaining her strength. With William stepping confidently into leadership and Princess Anne standing as his ally, the royal family appears more unified and traditional than it has in years. Camilla, meanwhile, may have sealed her own fate. Her treatment of Kate, whether motivated by rivalry or resentment, appears to have cost her everything. Because in today's monarchy, loyalty to the institution matters more than ever, and any threat to its most beloved figure is a line no one is willing to see crossed. When Charles took the throne after Queen Elizabeth II's passing, many believed his reign would be short but stable, a bridge between eras, leading to the eventual rule of Prince William. Now, with the crown in transition once more, that handover may be happening faster than anyone expected, but no one could have predicted just how quickly that bridge would begin to collapse. Behind the scenes, King Charles wasn't only juggling the duties of his role, he was battling for control of a monarchy under siege from within. Camilla's growing dominance, Anne's unyielding scrutiny, William's rising prominence, and Kate's health crisis had him pulled in every direction. And then, according to palace insiders, something gave way. The public saw only a polished announcement from Buckingham Palace. His Majesty the King, following careful consideration and discussions with his family and doctors, has decided to step back from royal duties for the foreseeable future, in the interest of his health and the long-term stability of the monarchy. But those closest to the situation say there's much more behind the statement. The truth? Charles was boxed in. After Princess Anne presented a damning report on Camilla's role in royal affairs, and Prince William issued a direct, uncompromising warning about the consequences of inaction, the king was forced into an impossible decision. Stand by his wife and risk splitting the royal family, or step aside. He chose to walk away. Multiple aides have since confirmed that Charles was devastated by what he learned, particularly the claims that Camilla had manipulated media narratives and sought to interfere with Kate's royal responsibilities. "It broke him," said one senior assistant. But deep down he understood that things couldn't continue the way they were. The final turning point came during a tough but decisive conversation with William. One insider said the Prince of Wales made it clear, "We won't serve under her, and neither will the country." It was a line no monarch ever wants to hear from their heir, especially one already embraced by the public as the future of the crown. Shortly after, Charles formally announced his indefinite withdrawal from public life, and Camilla was quietly told by Princess Anne that she would no longer play an official role in royal affairs. No press conference, no royal decree, just a clear and unspoken message. Her chapter was over. Since that moment, Charles has essentially vanished from public view. He's been resting at Balmoral, with no upcoming appearances on the calendar. His household staff has been downsized. Some believe he may never fully return. Others see this as the beginning of a discreet abdication. In the meantime, William and Anne have stepped up to lead the monarchy's day-to-day responsibilities. Though still recovering, Kate is expected to gradually resume limited duties, cementing her place as the monarchy's future queen. Camilla, on the other hand, has been quietly removed from the spotlight. Her name no longer appears in official releases. Her role is no longer acknowledged. There has been no formal dethronement, no headlines declaring her removal, and yet she's gone. Camilla wasn't pushed aside by scandal or public revolt, but by quiet consensus. Her influence erased not through force, but through resolve. And Charles, a man who waited a lifetime to wear the crown, now sits in solitude, still king in name, but surrounded by silence. What ended Camilla's reign wasn't chaos. It was a reckoning. Driven by Anne, enforced by William, and finalized by the one consequence Charles never thought he'd have to face: losing control of the institution he was born to protect. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a formal ceremony. There wasn't even a public statement. Queen Camilla's fall from grace happened in private, with clarity, finality, and not by the hand of her husband, but by the one royal she had never been able to sway: Princess Anne. According to palace sources, the decisive meeting occurred just days after King Charles announced he would permanently withdraw from royal duties. Camilla, already shaken and reportedly keeping to herself at Clarence House, was holding on to hope. She believed things would soon settle, that her role would be restored, and that Charles, like always, would shield her from the fallout. But that hope disappeared the moment Princess Anne walked through the door. The two met in strict privacy, accompanied by only one senior aide. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't up for debate. It was the delivery of a final decision. "You're finished here, Camilla," Anne reportedly told her in the calm, unwavering tone that's made her known as the firm's enforcer. "There's no path forward with you involved. Your time in the monarchy is over." Camilla was said to be speechless. For someone who had endured years of scandal and criticism and clawed her way into the royal circle through resilience and calculation, the suddenness of it all was staggering. She hadn't been brought down by headlines or a public reckoning, but by a private royal decision. Anne then laid out what would happen next. Camilla's public role was over. Her offices and staff would be dissolved. She would no longer reside at Clarence House. She would retain her title in name only, without duties, without public recognition. And perhaps most notably, she would have no remaining influence over royal affairs. It wasn't about punishment, Anne reportedly explained. It was about protecting the institution, a necessary act of containment. Camilla, according to an aide who witnessed the moment, reacted with shock and heartbreak. She broke down in tears, pleading for Charles, asking him to explain, to defend her, to change the course. But the king, now emotionally withdrawn and tucked away at Balmoral, remained silent. There were no calls, no letters, no intervention. The next morning, Camilla left Clarence House, escorted not by royal guards but by her personal security. There was no public send-off, no headlines, just a quiet exit. She retreated to her private estate in Wiltshire, where she remains, shut out from royal life, with only the distant hum of paparazzi outside her gates as a reminder of what she once held. Those close to her say she's devastated, angry, humiliated, and deeply hurt. Rumors swirl that she's considering a memoir. Some say she still hopes Charles will come back and stand up for her. But inside the palace, insiders insist her story is over. That chapter is closed. And it was Princess Anne, the steady hand, the silent protector of tradition, who wrote the final line. Because at its core, this wasn't a feud. It wasn't palace gossip. It came down to one undeniable truth. There is no room in the future of the monarchy for a queen who puts herself above the institution. Queen Camilla's time in the royal spotlight began with controversy and ended in quiet dismissal. For years, she withstood public backlash, relentless media attention, and personal resistance from within the family. She endured it all and rose to stand beside the man she loved, eventually crowned alongside him. But in the end, her undoing didn't come from the press, the public, or the shadow of Diana. It came from within the very family she believed had accepted her. Her removal wasn't dramatic. It was calculated. Behind closed doors, where real royal power lives, the monarchy chose to preserve itself. It prioritized duty over emotion and stability over sentiment. The final call came not from public pressure, but from Princess Anne and Prince William. And through their actions, a clear message was delivered. The crown will no longer bend to personal agendas. Camilla's quiet exit signals more than the end of a complicated chapter. It marks the beginning of a new one, defined by structure, discipline, and a renewed focus on the core royal family. The days of blurred roles, elevated outsiders, and internal maneuvering are over. The future now centers on William, Kate, and their direct heirs. Princess Anne's critical role in this shift only strengthens her place as the monarchy's unwavering protector, the steady force who steps in when others falter. And Prince William, by standing firmly beside both his aunt and his wife, has shown he's not only prepared to inherit the throne, he's ready to lead it with purpose. As for Camilla, she has faded into the background. Her title remains, but the power behind it has vanished. Some may view her story as a tragedy. Others will see it as a cautionary tale. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Sitting next to the crown does not mean it's yours to shape. Camilla's departure is both a symbolic rupture and a strategic move, a sacrifice made to protect the monarchy's future. In a world where silence carries weight and tradition rules all, one truth remains. In the House of Windsor, queens are not simply made by coronation. They're unmade by the very family sworn to uphold the crown.